Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Bryndís, and today we're talking about all of the books I read in January. January was a very good reading month for me. I actually read 14 books, which is either like impressive or kind of pathetic. I'm not quite sure where it lands. But I think there are a couple of reasons for why I managed to read 14 books, which is a lot. I mean, I would say that my average is probably 10. 10 books a month is very good. It's very good for me and very like average or normal. But more than that is not as frequent. But so 14 books, and it was because a few of them were quite short, very easy, quick reads. But also so my version of like dry January is no social media January, except YouTube. And so I wasn't on like my other social media are Instagram and Facebook, so I didn't go on there to scroll or do anything for the entire month, which freed up a lot of time for reading. And I absolutely loved it. I've actually since then left Instagram. I don't think I'm gonna go back there. I don't know, maybe I will at some point, but at least not. I love being off that type of doom scrolling social media type of a thing. It's just not very good for me at all. But anyway, so those were the kind of the backdrop to my being able to read as much as I did. And I think also just maybe wanting to kind of escape a little bit from this world. January has definitely been Januarying this year. So 14 books. So let's talk about it. The first 4 books that I read were Agatha Christie, Hercule Poirot. So I actually finished the Hercule Poirot series. I have now reread every single one of them, and I've been having a blast reading them. And so in January I read 4 of them, 4 last. I've been reading them in publication order, kind of, I think, or try to do that at least. Follow on this list that I had. I think were there 37? I can't remember, but there are a lot of books with Hercule Poirot. Books like novels and short story collections. But so the first book that I read this year was Halloween Party, which I own as in this cover, which I hate. Oh, I wish I hadn't bought this one. I bought it brand new even, because this is the movie title. They took the book, and Kenneth Branagh, I'm talking to you. He took the book Halloween Party and moved it to Venice. And like, I haven't seen the movie, so maybe it's very well done, but it's annoying. And it's especially annoying that this book, I listened to the audiobook, but this book here is not in Venice. It's in the English village where it originally. So why do they have this cover on it? Like, it would have been cool maybe if they would have had the reimagining of this book, which Kenneth Branagh did in the movie in Venice, in the book with the cover of stupid. Very stupid. Anyway, maybe the movie Hunting in Venice doesn't take place in Venice. Like I said, I haven't seen it. But the book Halloween Party, first published as Halloween Party, is actually pretty good. I mean, it's quite brutal. There's a child murder in it. So it's brutal. Murder is also quite brutal, I think. Quite like, whoa. But I liked it. It's pretty good. Like, I gave it 4 stars. I think the main thing that I really liked about it was Ariadne Oliver. She was a character there, and I always like her, and I like her and Poirot's banter. So yeah, despite of the cover here, I actually like the book. Then I read Elephants Can Remember. And this I really liked. I think this may be in my, well, at least in my top 5 of the Poirot books. No, top 10, sorry, of the Poirot books. Maybe even top 5. I'm not quite sure. I don't know if I'm gonna do this round of rereading these books. I don't know if I'm actually gonna do like a ranking. I might have to read them once more before I would do that, but it's definitely a favorite of mine. And I really like the storyline, the plots, the twists, all of those things. And again, Ariadne Oliver, I like her as a character, and her like I'm going off to look for elephants. I don't know. I think she's quite funny. So I gave this book 5 stars, and it's definitely a book I want to find so that I can own a physical copy of it. And then there was a short story collection called Poirot's Early Cases, and it was a mixed bag. Some of the stories I thought were really good. Some of them were like not so good. There were 2 favorite things about this collection was that Hastings is in many of them. My Hastings, my true love. And in one of the short stories, there was a character named Jonathan Bailey. Do I need to say more? So that was all I could think about when I was listening to Hugh Fraser narrate that story, because, Jonathan Bailey, right? So I like, in total, I'm giving this book 4 stars because this collection, because it was a mixed bag, like I said, but there was none of the stories there that I thought were like boring or bad. And there were a couple that were really, really good, like 5 stars, but most of them were just like good, but just good. But then we have the last book. Bittersweet, so bittersweet. I actually have 2 copies of this book. So it's called Curtain, Poirot's Last Case. I'm liking this cover more. So if I get to a point where I can only own 1 copy of each book, which is like what normal people do, I will unhold this one. But at the moment, I still have space to have multiple copies of the same book. So Poirot's Last Case. This, very bittersweet. So Hastings comes back as a character, which is wonderful. And so there's a reunion between Hastings and Poirot, and they are actually at Styles, which is where the first book takes place. But Styles is now no longer a country like manor house, but it's a hotel, some like country hotel. And so Poirot in this book is very old. He's in a wheelchair. He has such bad arthritis. His fingers are all like this. Poor Poirot. But his brain is still there. The grey cells are still there. Hastings' daughter is there. He is now a widower. He had I think it was like the 3rd book where he met his future wife in like Belgium. No, not Belgium. Was it in France? Can't remember what it was. Yeah. So Hastings met one of the people in one of Poirot's cases. Was Hastings ended up marrying her and had like at least 2 or 3 children with her. They lived in Argentina. Now she has passed away, and his oldest son has taken over the ranch or whatever they had in Argentina. And now Hastings is kind of like, what do I do with my life? So he comes to this reunion with Poirot, and it was lovely. Oh, mon ami, Hastings. Oh, it was just very lovely. It was very good for a Poirot, Agatha Christie fan. This was like a good book, like for the fans, basically. But I mean, there were parts of the stories that I wasn't a fan of necessarily. It wasn't the best, for sure. So I'm giving it 4 stars. It was very emotional at times and quite lovely, but there were a couple of things. I don't want to say anything about what I didn't like because that would totally spoil the book. But there were definitely a couple of things that I was just like, I would have liked things to have been differently. But as a last kind of closing up these, Poirot and his investigative life and all of that, it was okay. So 4 stars. Now I will admit that after finishing off Poirot, I'm feeling a little bit of a hole. There's a void in my life, but I'm trying to keep off from heading straight back into Agatha Christie, like her other books or Miss Marple, just to kind of allowing the Poirot books to kind of really sink in and just, So I just dove straight into my January pile of possibilities. And the first book that I read from that one was The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins. And this one is on my 25 in 2025 books. And this was a 5-star prediction for me. Like, I was expecting fantasticness after having read The Woman in White in October. And so I was probably maybe I was expecting too much. I was definitely a little bit disappointed. Having said that, I really enjoyed this book. I loved the epistolary format, so it's told in like people are writing down almost like their what's the word? Like as witnesses to the events, involving the Moonstones. And I thought that was really cool and very well done. It started off very slowly. I was just like, where is the mystery? Like, come on. It felt very slow to me at the beginning. But it definitely made me curious about, now I need to read Robinson Crusoe, because one of the narrators was always reading Robinson Crusoe, and like every life mystery could be solved by reading Robinson Crusoe, basically. You could find the answers there, basically. But I'm actually very curious to know more about India and like pre-colonization India, like the rich history that is there, like from ancient times. So I don't know much about India except from like Gandhi and forwards. So I would be very curious. I need to put that on my list to do next year. But I mean, okay, so I enjoyed this book. Like, it was a fun read and, fun plot. There were times where it was quite suspenseful. I really enjoyed it. And the second part was definitely more enjoyable to me than the first part, for sure. But it was not the masterpiece or like the exceptionally fun book, entertaining book I was hoping for. Let me tell you that. I liked Woman in White. Women in White? What is it called? The Woman in White. I like that one much better, for sure. But it's a strong 4 stars still. And I want to keep this book, and I'm most likely going to reread it at some point. And now we actually have a really good surprise, and that is Arthur Miller and A View from the Bridge and All My Sons. I think in my TBR I pulled one of the plays, so these are plays, but I decided to go ahead and read both of them, so I basically read the book. And I actually listened to both of them. Both of the plays were performed by LA Theatre Works, and there were some like famous actors and actresses in the parts there, and it was such a fantastic performance. It's so I've been learning in the last few months that I love like radio plays or like listening to plays. I mean, I should probably go to a theater more often and watch plays, because I actually really enjoy it. But I definitely enjoy listening to plays, like listening to them being dramatized as like radio plays. And it reminds me of like back in the day when I used to listen to radio plays a lot. Like when I was working, like on school holidays, I would be working in the fish factory in my hometown, and we would have like these huge chunky things on our ears, and we could like find the national radio, and usually there would be a play on at some point during the day, and I loved it. So A View from a Bridge basically takes place in New York, I think in Brooklyn, and it's about this Italian-American family, or a husband and wife, and their niece, who they are raising. And then two cousins come over from Italy, from I think Sicily, as illegal immigrants, and like they're hiding them and like and they are like working trying to get money to send back home. All the things. I think maybe in the 50s or something like that, 1950s. And the uncle has some feelings towards his niece that you would not necessarily think are suitable. And I'm pretty sure I'm not sure if he was her mother's brother or if the wife was her mother's sister. I can't remember that, but definitely which way, like, doesn't matter. You should not be thinking those things about your 18-year-old niece. And Greek tragedy ensues, basically. Oh my God. Yeah, there was a lot of drama here. This is why plays are often called dramas, right? Because they're very dramatic. But yeah, it was fantastic. And also All My Sons, that takes place in somewhere in the US, Midwest, I think maybe. I'm not quite sure. Or the Northwest, New York, Pennsylvania, maybe somewhere there. I'm not quite sure. I don't remember. I don't even know if it was set. And so a younger son is at home with his parents. His older brother had died in the Second World War, so it takes place a few years after that, maybe I think 8 years after the World War. And the father was like owner of this factory that was building like parts for planes. And so it's connected to the war and having lost a son to the war, but one son survived the war, and the girlfriend of the older son is now maybe going to marry the younger son. There's a lot of drama there, and oh my God, the drama! Oh my God, the drama! Overall, I'm giving it 4 stars. It was very enjoyable in the moment. I'm not sure if I'm necessarily going to want to read it again or listen to it again, but it was fun while it lasted. Oh, people. The Mill on the Floss by George Eliot. It was sublime, delightful, absolutely fantastic. Oh, so beautiful, so good. This description of the scenery, it like transported me back into my childhood, because I grew up in kind of on the outskirts of my hometown with like fields with sheep and horses and rivers and mountains and the sea, and it just like I felt like I was back on beautiful summer days, being a child running around in the fields. Oh, the description! Oh my God, the writing of this was phenomenal. The tone of the voice, and just the story, the plot itself, the characters. I mean, there's nothing I can say that was not good about this book. It was phenomenal. Just fantastic. I am like I feel like almost every classic that I'm reading, or at least Victorian classic that I'm reading, I am just blown away. So I don't even know like where I would rank this book in the line of the books that I've read before this and after this, because everything is so good, people. But yeah, this is a very clear 5-star for me. It's just beautiful. So it's Maggie Tulliver, who is a young, very smart young woman, and like it follows her childhood from I think she's about 9 and on until her early 20s, maybe mid 20s. I'm not sure. She has an older brother and her parents and aunts and uncles and cousins, and I'm not gonna say anymore but you have to read this book. It's so good. It's so good. And I'm not done with the good books, with the 5-star phenomenal books that I read in January, people. Nicholas Nickleby by Charles Dickens. This book is massive. I read it so quickly. I listened to it as an audiobook on 1.0 speed, by the way, because that's what I always do. A sign for me that I don't like a book that much is when I fasten the speed. But I listened to it 1.0 because I loved the performance of the narrator and this book. So the first couple of chapters, I was just like, oh, am I gonna want to read this? This is very bleak, very like, Victorian child abuse, servant abuse, horribleness. But it picks up. It gets better. So thankfully I didn't like DNF it immediately. But this was amazing. I mean, so the characters are just fantastic. The story and the language. Like I have not read a lot of Dickens. English is obviously not my first language, but I can now I can understand like when people say that he's like, I wouldn't say that he's the father of modern English. That would probably be Shakespeare. But like he's influenced English a lot, right? And just the culture. Oh my God, I thought it was also very funny. At the same time as it was very sad, and like the injustice of society was just killing me. But I love like the name of the chapters. I think, okay, so here we have a chapter, and it's chapter 44, I think. Mr. Ralph Nickleby cuts an old acquaintance. It would also appear from the contents hereof that a joke, even between husband and wife, may be sometimes carried too far. So that's the title of the chapter. I think I really love that. And also love like they're like, is it the names of the character, Mrs. Wititterly, and there's Lord Soft something. What is his name? Or something soft. I don't know. And of course, Darling Smike. It was just delightful. 5 stars. And then we have a book that was a big disappointment. Well, I don't know. Yes, it was actually quite disappointing. And it's an Icelandic book. It's a thriller, crime fiction, and by one of Stefán Máni, who's one of the big names here in crime fiction. It's called Death Alone Was a Witness, or something like that. It's just published like November or something, so it's brand new. And I was very surprised that it won. There's an annual like literary awards here in Iceland for Icelandic fiction, and for the crime fiction, this actually won, which I was very disappointed in, because there's another really good crime fiction that I read in December that definitely is much better than this one. But anyway, so this is a plot. So basically, there is it's one of his detective series. So he has a detective called Hörður, who is this 2-meter huge bear of a man, and behaves very weirdly sometimes towards his partner. And I think and their son, I think the child is theirs together. But like he's not a bad person, like he's not violent or anything, he's just weird. And he is always the cop that realizes that there's something more going on than meets the eye, when the other cops are like, oh, what do you mean? And it's very interesting that in this book, in books by Stefán Máni, there are always like serial killers, and which is like fantasy. Like, this is Iceland. There are no serial killers here. The last serial killer in Iceland was like in 1600s something. And there's even evidence now that he wasn't actually a serial killer, that he was framed. So, but anyway, there is this guy who has kind of threatened to do something, but it doesn't sound necessarily seriously, but still they're taking it very seriously. And there's this new kind of chief of police, or chief of like home safety police, I don't know, like what would it be called in English, like homeland security type of a thing, that is like very excited. Wow, finally we get like proper threat, we can like use our guns, aha, because police doesn't really use their guns in Iceland. But anyway, so yeah, the plot, like the thriller part of this book is really good. It was very suspenseful, it was very brutal, and the finding out, like, because we know who the murderer is from the beginning, basically, or almost from the beginning, and then we are just kind of following, how is he gonna get away? Is he gonna get away? How is Hörður going to catch him? Like, what is he gonna do before he's caught? Who is he gonna kill before he's, like, you know? And it's done very well. But the writing of this book, he was just sometimes explaining things in a way that made me think, like, who are you writing this book for? Because he was not writing it in Icelandic for Icelanders. You don't have to explain these things to a person who speaks Icelandic, because the chances are, if you speak Icelandic, you've lived in Iceland. You know, there are very few nerds out there who learn Icelandic and without actually living here, because, you know, it's a very small language. And he was just explaining things. It was like he was explaining, yeah, I ordered this from Amazon. The Amazon is like this international American-based company that sells things and ships things all over the world, from like often from smaller retailers, sometimes from their own stuff. We know that. You would have to be either 85 or 2 to not know what Amazon is, or Starbucks, or McDonald's, or whatever. And I felt like he was explaining those type of things in this book. Like, I know what happens when we have like an orange or an amber weather threat. We just had those the other day. We have amber weather threats all the time. Everybody in Iceland knows what it means when it goes, it's like green, it's like normal, then it's yellow, amber, and red. And everybody knows, who's not an idiot, that when it's orange, you should really consider whether you need to go traveling and be outside. And when it's red, just stay inside. Like, you don't need to be explained to us. That was not necessarily the thing that he was explaining, but, you know, it was very annoying. Very annoying. But because the plot and the thriller was really good, I'm giving it 3 stars. So it wasn't all bad. I just wish that it had gone through some editing process, or maybe just like rewritten like this when it was being translated, because I can understand him wanting to explain some of these things to an international audience, but he didn't need to explain it in the Icelandic one. Okay, 3 stars. Sorry about that rant. But now here we have a much better Icelandic writer. Halldór Laxness, and this is his book World Light. I almost forgot. So I obviously have this, and this is actually my copy, because I bought it, because actually I've been borrowing my parents' books for the most part, of the 12 books by him that I've been reading, or was reading last year, but they didn't have World Light, so I bought it, and it smells like an old book. But yeah, so this book, World Light, I mean, it's a masterpiece. I think that this is like the book that, when was it published? 1937 to 1938 was it published. So it's actually two books, like 1 and 2 here in one volume. And I think that this is definitely, alongside a couple of other of his books, that won him the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1955. Because it's a masterpiece. The writing, it's so beautiful. And I love the fact that, so the main character is a poet, but he was born very poor and like super poor, like with state benefits, but like back, I think maybe in the like either very early 20th century or late 19th century. And if you were born, you had no, like, he had parents, but he was born out of wedlock. So he was very young, taken from his mother and put into foster care or whatever it was called, which basically meant that he was mistreated his entire life, made to work very hard from a very young age. And he was a very frail, thin little boy, frail, thin, young man. So he was definitely not made to be a laborer, like a manual laborer, which is what you had to be if you were poor in Iceland back in the day, or probably everywhere. So he got very sick because he was worked too hard when he didn't have the capabilities. So he spent like 5 years or whatever in bed as an invalid, and he was like, he was treated so badly. It was so sad. A lot of parts of it was just so emotional when he was just wanting to die, and it's very emotional. But he is like, he's a poet, so there are like some of the poets, the poetry that Halldór Laxness was also a poet, as well as a author and like a novelist, poet, essayist, playwright, all of the things. So some of his poets that I know are in this book, and they come from this book, which is really fun and really, really lovely. But yeah, it was just, if you want to read something really beautiful, literary, such beautiful like descriptions and dialogue, I would definitely recommend this book. But it's very long, and it's kind of long-winded at times. It's like 600 something pages, and it takes commitment to read this book, but I think it's worth it, especially if you are into kind of more heavier literature. Yeah, I feel like I should give it 5 stars because it's worldwide, but I'm giving it 4 stars because I'm ruled by my heart. And even though I enjoyed it, it wasn't like, there were other of his books that I loved much better than this one, but I can recognize it's pure genius. And it was the last book in my 12 book Halldór Laxness project. I'm very proud of myself for having finished it and read 12 books by this man. And I'm actually curious to read more of him now, because I think that there are still several of his novels that I haven't read. Some plays, his essays could be interesting, and also I think a couple of memoirs. So yeah, but yeah, it was good. And then the last 4 books I read just like very fast, as audiobooks obviously. And it's the Marlowe Murder Club series. So the 4 books that are out already. And those are really fun. Those are by Robert Thorogood. They were all of them just fun, entertaining, lovely, like plot. The plot was fun. The characters were really fun. Absolutely loved Judith. Goals for when I'm 78 or 77. I'm gonna be like her and like swimming naked in the river or whatever. Like fantastic characters, and all of the books are just so much fun, and I was laughing out loud and just like rooting for the characters as well, and yeah. in this last one, so the first one obviously introduces the characters, and I think that one is my favorite so far. And it was just such a good setup of the characters, how they met and got to know each other, and how they got to know the police detective, and it was just excellent. And my least favorite was probably the third book, The Queen of Poison. I felt it was a little bit predictable, but still a lot of fun and very entertaining. And then in the last book, Murder on the Marlow Bell, I think the thing that I enjoyed, one of the things that I enjoyed the most in that book was actually the references to The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde, because there was a theater group putting on that play, and I just recently read that play, so I could like really remember the characters that they were playing. So that was fun. But I absolutely loved this book. 100% recommend them, and I've actually ordered or bought 3 of them. The fourth one is not out on paperback yet, but I've ordered the first 3 because I want to own these books, and I want them for my collection. And yeah, I had so much fun. I'm giving all of them 4 stars. They were not 5 stars because I've definitely read better mysteries and all of that, but they were just so much fun, and yeah, really an excellent end to the month. Technically, I finished the last book on the 1st of February, but I'm counting it in January. So yeah, they were really fun. So here they are, the books I read in January. Yeah, like I said, it was an excellent reading month. I had so much fun, and for the most part, at least, and it was really fun also to discover the Marlow Mystery Club, the Marlow Murder Club, to know that I actually enjoy kind of what's it called, cozy mysteries. I think those would be classified as a cozy mystery. They're definitely funny mysteries. But yeah, so I'm happy about that. It was fun to discover something new, and just the masterpieces that I read this month. Like, What Is My Life is like the best thing ever. February is already beginning very well as well. So I'm just having a very good reading year so far, which is excellent, because I'm like, the world may be on fire around me with world politics, with PhD and all of that, but my reading is on point. So, you have to take your blessings where you find them, I think, is that the saying, I think. Anyway, what did you read in January? Have you read any of these books, or would you be interested in reading any of these books? Let me know in the chat below, and see you in my next one. Bye.